She lost a reality show. She was ignored by record labels, and she decided that no one else would dictate her greatness. Have you ever felt like you're working yourself to the point where you're bleeding inside and no one notices? Have you ever had that moment when everything inside you screamed for a chance at just one, and the world responded with silence, as if you were invisible, as if what you feel doesn't matter, as if your dreams are too big? For someone like you, it's like falling off a stage and hearing the audience laughing softly, or worse, not even caring. And then you ask yourself, could it be that the problem is me? There are days when you don't want to win. You just want to be seen. You just want someone to notice that you're trying, that you're still here, that you haven't given up yet, even though you're tired, even though you're broken, even though you feel like you're losing your own value with every no you hear in silence. But no one sees. And when no one sees, you start to doubt whether it's worth continuing. Here, every story is a spark. Every video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. If this story has already touched something inside you, imagine what's to come by the end. Subscribe now and stay with us. This was Beyoncé's reality before the world knew her name, before the giant stages, before the awards, before the screaming crowds. She was rejected, not once, but multiple times. She heard from record company executives that it was not commercial, which had no presence, which it wasn't memorable. It hurts more than we admit, right? Because deep down you just wanted a chance to prove that you are more than they say, more than they made you believe, more than the defeats you had to swallow in silence. And it is exactly there, in that silence, that the story that will turn you inside out begins. At the age of 9, Beyoncé was already on stage. But not everyone saw what she saw. She felt the call. That thing that pulses in her chest without explanation. The sparkle in her eyes when the world hasn't hurt her yet. When you believe that you just have to be good enough for them to see you. For them to choose you. But life has a cruel way of testing those who dream too big. In 1993, she and the girls from Destiny's Child, still under another name, took to the stage at Star Search, the biggest reality talent show of the time. It was the moment, the stage, the chance. They smiled, sang, gave it their all. They left the stage with their hearts racing, and they lost. They didn't just lose. They were ignored, forgotten. They disappeared from the screen as if they had never existed. No one looked twice, no one asked for an encore, no one said, "Come back tomorrow." It was as if the world had just said, "It's not enough." Now imagine this happening to an 11-year-old girl, coming home with your clothes still smelling like costumes and your soul smelling like failure, seeing your mother holding back her tears, trying to say that everything is okay, feeling the weight of the silence in the car while no one knows what to say, not even her, because all she wanted to do was sing, and it seemed like no one cared. But the pain didn't stop there. The record labels came next, or rather the closed doors. No presence, they said, no edge. A black girl from Texas, trying to break into an industry that had already decided who deserved to be heard. And she wasn't on that list. Meetings that turned into excuses, auditions that ended with fake smiles. Executives looking her up and down as if they were evaluating a defective product. People telling her she needed to be sexier. That she was missing something, that she didn't sell. She heard this many times. So many times that she began to believe it. She began to wonder if the problem was with her voice, with her face, with her body. And what begins as doubt turns into shame, and shame gradually silences you from within. It is not a scream, it is an erosion, invisible, silent, daily. She trained, she rehearsed. She killed herself with her vocals, her choreography, her posture, her look. She did everything, but she felt like it was never enough. That there was always a little more missing, that the world asked the impossible of her only to, in the end, give her nothing in return. And when you give it your all and remain invisible, something inside starts to break. She cried in her room, in silence, ashamed of feeling pain for something that others said was just a no. But it wasn't just a no. It was the world telling her that her dream was ridiculous, that the desire, that burned inside her was an illusion. It was too much. It was too big for her. She saw other girls being chosen, average artists being promoted as stars, and she thought, why them and not me? Comparison became a knife, insecurity a prison, and inside her a part began to die. Not her voice, but her faith. Because there is a type of failure that does not break your career, it breaks your identity, and she was hanging by a thread. This is where a lot of people give up. When everything you do seems pointless. When you try to fit in, try to please, try to change, try to be someone else, and still they keep telling you it's not enough. It's the kind of rejection that makes you doubt who you are, that makes you wish you were someone else. That makes you hate your own reflection. She found herself there, alone, no contracts, no victories, no applause, just her, and the echo of everything they said she wasn't. The girl from Texas who dreamed too big, who wanted too much, who felt too much, who believed too much, and everything around said give up. But she still breathed, even with her soul wounded, even with her voice choked, even with shame, even with fear. She was still here, and it was there, in that dark hole, that something began. To move silently, without fanfare, without an audience, nobody saw, no cameras filmed. There was no light, no stage, no audience. It was in the dark, literally and emotionally. The kind of silence that hurts your bones. That moment when everything seems to have died inside. Beyoncé was there, with eyes fixed on the ceiling, lying in bed. Property. The body is present, but the soul wants to escape from itself. She had cried so much that her eyes no longer hurt. They just burned. Her mind repeated the phrases she had heard for months. You're not memorable. You have no presence. You don't have what the market is looking for. And worst of all, she believed it. But in that silence, something happened. It wasn't a cry of revolt. It wasn't a surge of motivation. It was almost the opposite. It was a tiredness so deep that the bottom became the ground. And instead of breaking, she sank until she found a firm place inside herself. She got out of bed, without haste, without strength, but with a silent urgency that only those who have reached rock bottom know. She walked to the desk. She pulled, opened the drawer. She took out an old notebook with a black cover. In it, a few pages of writing, scribbles, fragments of lyrics, verses that never became music. She turned the page. She picked up the pen. She stared at it for a few seconds. Her hand was shaking a little, not from fear, from meaning, because she knew what she was going to write, not to post, not to show, not to prove anything. He wrote 3 lines, simple, direct, almost childish, but loaded with a new soul code. I am the blueprint. I am the pattern. I am what the world has not yet understood. He closed the notebook and put it back in the drawer. Nobody needed to see. That night Beyoncé died and was born, not literally, but the version that depended on the approval of others. That one sat there in that bed. She decided, not that she would be famous, not that she would be rich. She decided that no one else would have the power to measure its value. And that decision changes everything, because when you stop asking permission, you start building your own door. The next morning, nothing seemed different. The same house, the same faces, the same routine, but within it, a new foundation had been laid. Invisible from the outside, unchanging inside. She went back to training, but now it wasn't to please. She started writing again. But now she didn't have to fit into any patterns. She began to sing again. But now each note was a silent reminder. No one else dictates who I am, and that's how great things are born, not on stage, but in the dark. It's not easy. It's lonely. It's internal, but it's real. And that's where the turning point lies that changes everything. If you've ever felt like you were on the verge of giving up, but decided to keep going just because something inside you refused to die, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if this part touched you, subscribe to the channel now, because this story is not even halfway there yet. And maybe it is the key to your own invisible turnaround too. No one saw it. No cameras recorded. There was no motivational speech, no epic soundtrack, just silence. and the weight of all the no's accumulated in every part of her body. Beyoncé was there, sitting on the edge of her bed, at the end of yet another day in which the world screamed that she wasn't enough, and she had to smile as if it didn't hurt. The house was quiet. Everyone had already gone to sleep, but her chest would not rest. It was as if something was stuck between his ribs. It wasn't just tiredness. It was choking humiliation. It was shame for having believed so much in a dream that seemed to laugh in her face. It was anger, silent anger. Anger at having molded himself so much, of having tried to please, of having bent to fit. There in the darkness of the room, she no longer cried. I've been through this before. I had already spilled everything I could. Now it was different. It was dry. It was deep. It was the moment when pain stopped being a scream and became a decision. But not a decision that is announced. A decision that is felt. That doesn't need words, just by presence. She stood up slowly. No urgency in her body, but a new kind of firmness, a weight in her gaze. The same face, but another soul behind it, as if something had aligned inside, as if for the first time she was whole, even without anyone around, even without anyone applauding. She looked in the mirror. She wasn't looking for beauty. She wasn't looking for approval. She just stared. She didn't run away. And for the first time, she didn't see what was missing. She saw what was there. She saw what she was. And even without saying anything, something was decided there. Something changed. The next morning, everything seemed the same. The same routine, the same looks, the same demands, but inside something was no longer the same. She had no new contract, no recognition. But she had made a choice, an invisible choice, a silent alliance with herself. Stop begging for value. She went back to training, but her training had a different rhythm, a different intention. She no longer wanted to prove anything to anyone. She wanted to honor what she felt. She wanted to let the pain turn into strength. She wanted to stop asking for permission to exist. And that's how real comebacks begin. Not on stage, not in success, but when deep down, you decide that no one will tell you who you are anymore. Not others, not fears, not defeats. If this hit you in the chest in any way, if you've ever experienced one of those moments when everything falls apart on the outside and something lights up on the inside, then this story is for you. Subscribe to the channel now, because what comes next may stir up even more what's inside you. In the beginning, it was still quiet. The decision had been made, but the world didn't change overnight. Beyoncé kept waking up early, training until her body hurt, rehearsing even without show dates, even without contracts, even without knowing if anyone would listen. But she kept going. Because now, it wasn't about acceptance anymore. It was about commitment to herself. And that's when the world started to give way. Slowly but irreversibly. First came the small openings. A businessman who believed. A chance to open a show. A contract signed with restrictions, but which finally put Destiny's Child in the game. The group was reformulated, relaunched. And suddenly that voice that they said was without presence became the center of attention. The invisible girl now commanded the stage with a magnetism that could no longer be ignored. Say My Name, Survivor, Bootylicious. Songs that didn't just play on the radio, they took over the streets, parties, headphones, and lives. Destiny's Child was no longer a promise, they were a reference. And Beyoncé, even sharing the spotlight, made it clear that there was something different about her. A flame, a dedication, a leadership that didn't ask for permission, but she didn't settle. When the group reached the top, she had the courage that few have to start over. Get out of your comfort zone, starting a solo career, betting everything on one's own identity when one already had a safe place guaranteed. And then came the explosion. In 2003, Dangerously in Love brought the world to its knees. She was no longer just a singer, she was a force. Crazy in Love became an anthem, and what was once a doubt became a certainty. The awards started coming, Billboard, Grammy, MTV. It was as if the universe was responding to that invisible decision made years before. As if it was saying, now it's your turn to be heard. But it didn't stop there. She took control. She created Parkwood Entertainment. She became CEO of her own career. She directed her own music videos. She produced her own albums. She rewrote the rules. With Beyoncé 2013, she released an entire album by surprise and changed the industry model forever. With Lemonade, she transformed pain into art with a raw, impactful, immortal honesty. And then came the Super Bowl, one of the most watched stages on the planet. Millions of people watching, and there she was, in the center, with the whole world looking at someone who once said she wasn't good enough. Her look said it all. She didn't need to speak. It was as if every step, every beat, every breath said, "I told you so." Even when no one listened, and the world listened. Today, Beyoncé is more than an artist. She is a symbol of excellence, of reinvention, of strength, of vision. A black woman who didn't just win, she changed the game. But none of this started with applause. It started in silence, that night without witnesses, in that decision that no one saw. Because it's always like this. Change begins invisibly, first from the inside, then the world bows, and you. What do you have inside that no one else sees? How many times have you woken up with a tight chest, with that feeling that you're falling behind, that no matter how hard you try, it always seems like the world is moving faster than you? How many times have you held back the urge to cry in the middle of a meeting, on the way to work, in the middle of the night staring at the ceiling? How many times have you thought, maybe I wasn't born for this? Maybe I'm dreaming too much. Maybe they're right, but what if they are wrong? What if the world just can't see you because you haven't really seen yourself yet? Look at your story. Take it easy. Try to remember a moment when everything seemed to go wrong. A moment that left a mark on you, that left a bitter taste, that made you rethink whether it was worth continuing. Remember what you felt that day. That mix of frustration and helplessness, the desire to disappear, to start over somewhere else with another name, another life. And now think, what made you stay? Because if you're here, watching this video, it's because there's still a part of you that refuses to give up. And that's no small thing. Maybe no one knows how much you have fought in silence. How many times have you swallowed your fear, tiredness, doubt, and taken another step, even without knowing where you were going? Maybe you never told anyone. Maybe you didn't even value it. But each of those times was an invisible decision. And they matter. They count. They brought you here. The difference between someone who turns the key and someone who stays put is not talent. It is not luck. It is what a person decides when they are alone, in the dark, without applause, without proof that they will succeed. That is when the story changes. That is when the kind of strength that no one can take away from you is born. Have you ever had that moment? Have you ever had a moment when everything inside you screamed, "Enough"? Have you ever felt that even without support, even without knowing the end, it was time to stop asking for permission and just start? So comment below. Tell me what your silent turning point was, the one that no one knows about, but that you never forgot. Or write down what you still need to decide. Write with courage, as if it were a pact with yourself. Because sometimes all we need is to declare enough is enough. Now it's up to me, and if that moment hasn't come yet, that's okay too. Maybe it's happening right now as you watch this. Maybe this story isn't just about Beyoncé. Maybe it's your story waiting for a new chapter. You don't need permission. You don't need anyone's approval. You don't need to fit in. You just need to decide. Inside, in the dark, in the silence. Like she did, like so many others have done, and like you can do too. It all starts there. Invisible, but real. More real than everything they said you weren't. More real than any failure. Because failure is only what the world sees before your decision appears. And when it appears, no one has the right to ignore you anymore. Never again. Comment below. What was your quietest turning point? That moment that no one applauded, no one noticed, but that you know changed everything inside. It could be a thought, a choice, a little courage on a difficult day. Share it with your heart, because your story matters. Because it can light someone's path right now. If this video touched you in any way, if any part of it resonated with you, please like it. This shows that there are more people feeling the same pain, making the same invisible choices. And subscribe to the channel. Here, each story is a spark. Each video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. Want to be inspired by more real stories of people who were discredited, humiliated, discarded, and still turned the tables? Click on the video that appears here on the screen and continue this journey of transformation. Because sometimes all we need is to hear that there is still time. There is still time to choose differently. There is still time to get up silently and start again.